Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
All right, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Must Read Alaska from somewhere in Alaska, where it's a gorgeous day out there. I think at least from Anchorage down to Ketchikan, we've had some really beautiful weather, and it was great Easter weekend. My co-host, John Quick, is with me today. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Doing awesome down here on the Kenai Peninsula. We have the snow is melting, luckily, kind of. I got probably 2.5 feet of snow still at my house. I went out yesterday to get the last ice chunk off of our kids' trampoline, and about tore my hip flexor, which I don't even know what that is, but I think I figured out what it was because my feet sink in 3 feet because the snow's about that time of the year, and man,
You just post hold on too.
Yes, and I can't wait till it all melts. So it's hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Have you seen those those huge blow torches that people have online that they advertise? These are like flamethrowers.
Yeah.
This is what you need for your lawn. You need a flamethrower. Speaking of which, I guess there's a big there's a big wildfire out in Bethel, and it's really early in the season for the first fire of the season. Quite honestly, it's crazy to have a fire so soon. It's like 1,200 acres. I don't know how it got started. We don't have lightning at this time of year, but it's pretty crazy. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of really fun things. But first of all, I want to thank the Charlie Pierce for Governor campaign for sponsoring our show. We really appreciate the support we get from Charlie Pierce for Governor and Edie Grunwald for Lieutenant Governor. It's been really helpful to us. Costs a lot of money to put this show together, believe it or not. And there's a lot of technical things in the background that go on that people don't see. And John, I believe you got us on Pandora. I'm pretty excited about that. So we're on, is there a platform that we're not on now? We're on everything, right?
We finally got approved to be on Pandora. They're kind of like the biggest stickler to get approved on. And we got approved on there, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, which is very exciting. So you can just, if you have an Alexa or a Google Home Pod, you can just tell your Google Home Pod or Alexa to play our Must Read Alaska show. And now they can choose from Pandora, iHeartRadio, and the list goes on. The last platform that we just got approved for was Samsung. So Samsung just came out with, Samsung has their own phones and their own TVs, and they're big in the US, but around the globe, like their phones are uber popular, especially in the Android world. And their TVs are very, very popular. And so they just launched their own platform, and we got approved for to be on their platform with just kind of a handful of podcasts they're picking right out the gate, and ours got picked to be one of them. So we're pretty excited about that.
Well, welcome everybody from the Samsung platform and also from Pandora platform. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska show. We have a little bit of an update from the Anchorage elections. Of course, that was held earlier this month. And because Anchorage does a mail-in only, pretty much mail-in only, you have to drop in a drop box or drop it in the mail. You really don't vote in person here in Anchorage anymore. And because of that, it takes forever to get the results and forever for things to get finalized. I got the voter count from this morning. We had 71,462 ballots cast, and I'll do a story later today. And then the Anchorage Assembly will be certifying that tomorrow in their special assembly meeting where they certified the election. And in Anchorage, of course, as conservatives know, they won one seat back from the Marxist 9. And then the rest of the seats look like they kind of remained in place there. There will be a Marxist 8 for a while, and then they're going to add another seat for downtown Anchorage so that they can lock in that liberal vote for Anchorage, which is just simply going to drive all the conservatives out into the valley and into the other areas of maybe Kenai. I hear property in Kenai is still affordable, but boy, I tell you, property in Wasilla is going up in price because everybody wants to move out of Anchorage. It's crazy. It's crazy. But the topic of the day is, does a Donald Trump endorsement even help or hurt at this point in Alaska? No, I kind of wish we had a Donald Trump endorsement for our show. I think that would actually help.
He should go on Cameo. We could get him on Cameo. We could get an endorsement.
Yeah, for that matter, I'll do a cameo for him if he likes. Yeah, it's like I
That's
wasn't a
funny.
Donald Trump fan before, but now I think he's pretty cool. Yeah, so everybody's been following this congressional race that has developed, and John, it's been so interesting because just until a couple of weeks ago, it was the Senate race that was the marquee race in the country, the Murkowski race, because that is well known to be Donald Trump's. He hates Lisa Murkowski, and Lisa Murkowski hates him. It is a relationship that was sour from the beginning. She just, he made her skin crawl. She never liked him, and she didn't like his picks for Supreme Court, and she was always really making trouble for the president. So he would like to take out Lisa Murkowski with Kelly Tshibaka, who he endorsed. And that was the marquee race in the country. But then when Don Young died and everybody jumped in the race for Congress, it just became the marquee race. And I've got to tell you, all the national media is focused because Sarah Palin, she kind of sucks the oxygen out of every room. She is the it girl always. And so the media, they don't have Donald Trump to write about anymore or talk about. Well, they've got Sarah Palin, and that drives a lot of interest for them. And it's all about clicks and so forth. So you had the Washington Post, they assigned Libby Casey to the story, and Libby Casey has longtime Alaska roots in public media, public broadcasting. She wrote a story about Sarah Palin's running for Congress, but many Alaskans are skeptical of her. And they just, she talked to several conservatives around Alaska, influencers, and people just are not warming up to the Sarah Palin campaign here. Then Politico sent a reporter up to follow Nick Begich, who's running for Congress. And he, of course, as you know, announced back in October. He was like one of the only ones who had the guts to announce before Don died. While Sarah Palin jumped in after Don died because, well, she didn't have the guts to take him on when he was alive. Okay, I got it. And so this reporter, David Siders from Politico, he came up and he wrote his story about Sarah Palin doesn't seem to have the love that she in Alaska that people around the country have for her. She's sort of a Tea Party favorite around the country, but in Alaska, not so much. And then the New York Times did a story. Sarah Palin knows how to get attention. Can she actually win? And the New York Times actually sent a reporter to track Nick Begich's campaign through Southeast Alaska this last weekend, because he was in Juneau and he was in Haines and he was in Ketchikan. And the New York Times reporter was following him and doing a story kind of on him because he's sort of the other lead player in all of this because he's been at it for a while. He's been at it since October, so he's got a little bit more clout. And then this morning, The Hill wrote a story saying, Trump's clout is really on the line in these Senate GOP primaries. And I think Alexander Bolton wrote a really interesting story. And I'm going to write a story today in Must Read Alaska about whether or not the Donald Trump endorsement actually helps candidates or hurts them in Alaska, because now you have Donald Trump endorsing Mike Dunleavy, Kelly Tshibaka, and Sarah Palin. So how does that help or hurt each one of those candidates? And I'd like your thoughts on it, John.
Well, I think I have a couple thoughts about Sarah Palin. I think that, she is a rock star, whether we like it or not. She has been very successful with her own brand. There's very few folks in Alaska that have been able to snag multiple New York Times bestsellers, their own reality TV shows, right and left, headline Tea Party speaking engagements. And, she's done that real well. But I think some of the downsides of that are, I think there's a verse in the Bible that says you can't be a prophet in your own town. And it's tough. I think, it's like when the country singer from your small town comes back to, have dinner in the local restaurant and gets crap thrown at him because he still owes somebody for $5 and never finished plowing, somebody's driveway when he was 11 years old or something like that. I think it's really hard for folks, especially in Alaska, because we're a small town here, to have somebody like that come back off the famous wagon and feel like, Alaska, I think a lot of folks in Alaska, including myself, feel like, where have you been the last 15 years when we needed your help? You've been doing celebrity things, which I think is awesome. You've been successful, but it's a little it's just disingenuous sometimes because, a small little example is, I can, with the Must Read Alaska show, we can pretty much reach out to any candidate in Alaska and they'll be on our show, or they'll say, we're too busy, sorry, but they'll at least get back to us real quick. Sarah Palin's crickets, I've invited her on the show a couple times over the last couple months, just because I think it'd be good for folks to hear from her. And not only does she just, my guess is it's a no, but she doesn't even have the time to respond to us, which that is a perfect example of how Alaskans feel like with Sarah Palin that have any sort of political knowledge, that they feel like she didn't have time for us. She has time to run for Congress and do all these other things, but, she doesn't even have time to respond to the top conservative news channel in Alaska, a yes or a no. And so that is a very small example, but a very prime example of, I think, how a lot of Alaskans are feeling. It doesn't kill or circumvent any of the success that she has. I think that's awesome. I look at it as two different things. She's been successful, but now she's trying to show up and now hang out among us common folks here in Alaska again. And I think it's going to be a little tough for folks when they feel like they've been forgotten about.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple comments about that. One is that I looked at her Facebook page and she's having somebody produce some pretty high professional meme content for her with articles on her sarahpalin.com site, but it's all national stuff. She's completely focused on red meat Republican issues at the national level. And then I dug down a little deeper, and all of her comments under her stories on Facebook are all from people outside the state. These are all, I went through their, sort of trolled through the accounts and said, who are these people? Well, they're all from outside the state. So she doesn't really have a lot of reach inside the state. And she doesn't appear to be reaching out to Alaskans because she's not talking to Alaska about Alaskan issues. She's talking to the national audience. And that may be part of her fundraising strategy. And so it's very possible that that Donald Trump has endorsed somebody who, she's got a lower approval rating in Alaska than Joe Biden, if you can believe it. So this gets back to my original premise, which is, does a Donald Trump endorsement help or hurt? And in this case, I think his endorsement of Sarah Palin is actually a little bit difficult. I mean, it might have been more helpful if he had endorsed somebody else than her, but because her approval rating is so low, it puts Alaskan Republicans and conservatives in a little bit of a conflicting place, because Donald Trump is a divisive figure. You either love him or you hate him. If he was in a ranked choice environment, you'd either vote for him as your number one, or you wouldn't vote for him at all, because you wouldn't vote for Donald Trump for number two. You just wouldn't. And Sarah Palin's a little bit like that too. She'll either be your number one candidate, or you threw open your mouth a little bit. You can't vote for her. And so I think both of them are lightning rod figures. They don't appeal to the middle as much. But, well, we did that poll and we discovered that 31% of voters would vote for her. And that's not enough actually to win. 31% is not enough to get there. So we'll see what happens in the ranked choice environment. But with Trump coming in and supporting all three of our statewide races, if he comes up this summer to do a rally, I think it really puts Mike Dunleavy in a difficult position, because they get on the stage and at a rally. And I mean, Sarah Palin, she is absolutely charismatic.
Oh, yeah.
And, Dunleavy's a little bit of he's a mule rancher. He's not charismatic the way she is. And I think Kelly Tshibaka would have even a hard time kind of holding her own on the stage, because Kelly can't sort of dig deep and pull out that sort of, I don't know, phony.
Well, geez, anybody would have a hard time, I think, sharing a stage with Sarah Palin. She
exactly.
It's like holding a church service at some mega church. I mean, that's the kind of inspiration I think that she can draw out of a crowd. And that's she got that from, just being who she is. I think she's naturally like that. But she spoke, when she ran for VP, we got to remember that she was on stage with John McCain in front of hundreds of thousands of people over the course of a year, and she fine-tuned those skills in the field and got really good at it.
She is very good on her feet. She's extremely good at one-liners, and she knows how to work an audience. But the question is, who is the audience that shows up for that rally? Is it the Dunleavy supporter? Is it the Tshibaka supporter? No, probably most likely it's going to be a Sarah Palin supporter. And so I think it makes it awkward for the other candidates having Donald Trump in this mix, because that means, do all three of them have to show up on a rally stage? To me, that's really awkward for the governor and for Kelly Tshibaka. I think it's not helpful to Kelly Tshibaka's campaign to have the Donald endorsing Sarah Palin. I think that he's actually hurting. He wanted to get rid of Murkowski, and I think he's just done something that's kind of hurt himself. And he's now got a pattern of doing that because, for instance, he has had a couple of high-profile endorsements that haven't done real well. He endorsed. Let's see, Sean Parnell down in Pennsylvania, I think, and he withdrew from the race. That was a kind of a catastrophe. Now it's not our Sean Parnell; it's another Sean Parnell. They just share the same name. And he's now endorsed J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance in Ohio is not really preferred by most conservatives. Actually, the guy who's this Mandel guy in Ohio is leading, and Vance is trailing. He endorsed Representative Brooks in Alabama, and that backfired. And so he's not batting 1,000 when he comes in to endorse. It's not a sure bet. So I guess if I'm the governor, I'm kind of just wanting to back away from all that. And let me tell you, if Donald Trump comes up to have a campaign event, I don't know. I think I just need to go and have a kidney stone removed rather than show up if I'm him.
Yeah, I think that the normal folks of Alaska are going to be excited about anybody that Donald Trump endorses. I think that, that's where you and I maybe see this a little differently, which is totally fine. That's because you're in Nikiski. Yeah, it can't be helped. I think that, you get a guy like Donald Trump, and he entices folks to get out and vote, folks that may not otherwise get out and vote.
That's
and
right.
Especially those conservative, more libertarian-leaning crowd. And so, does Donald Trump understand Alaska politics? Probably not, but he understands marketing probably better than most, if not any ever, president that I've seen in the last, 30 years. And I think if Donald Trump he has endorsed Sarah Palin, and I think that it does become a little bit sticky. I think that's the only sticky point I have, is because she's so out of touch with the average Alaskan. I think that that's a real tough thing to do. But I honestly think that his endorsement, a lot of folks that don't follow politics, which is our, the majority of people, if we're honest,
Yep.
They're going to look at that and say, oh, Donald Trump endorsed a conservative or libertarian that, lives out here in Nikiski in the woods, is going to look at that and say, oh, Donald Trump supported her, so I'm going to support her. And I'm not saying that that's a good or bad thing. I just think that that's kind of the reality of the situation, is the folks that don't pay attention too much. Just like when, Obama endorses some left candidate, it's almost like an automatic stamp of approval for those folks that aren't really involved, and all they know is that Obama endorsed them.
Right.
If Donald Trump does come up here, I think it's going to be an event that everybody's going to be talking about for the last, next 50 years.
It will be a big event, but he could land with a bang, or he could land with a thud, but we'll see. I kind of am looking right now at the primary, which let me remind our listeners that the ballot for the special election goes out in 9 days.
Oh gosh.
It is right here. And the only person who has really been making a lot of traction here is Nick Begich. Now, I have heard here in the Anchorage media market, Jeff Lowenfeld ads on the radio. And so he's spending some money on radio. And I imagine that's between a $25,000 and a $50,000 buy. And that's probably his own money, because I think he's well off. And he's running as an independent. So he has no ability to raise money from any kind of party infrastructure. He's just a lone wolf out there. but he's got some radio ads. I haven't heard anything about Sweeney, Tara Sweeney. She has a lot of money behind her, but they haven't mobilized it. She doesn't even have a Facebook page yet for her campaign, which is absolutely mystifying to me, since, like I said, 9 days from now, the ballots go out and people are curious about who these people are that they kind of hear about now and then. Josh Redak, not really catching much of a pulse. He too is sort of blogging on Facebook about national issues, nothing about Alaska. Al Gross is making some traction. He's got his plan well in place, and he's showing his real Alaska focus on his Facebook brand as well. Nick Begich running through lots of communities, running really hard, and was down in Ketchikan, had a big bunch of support down there. And over the weekend, I guess Doug Ward, who's quite well known in Ketchikan, did an endorsement for him on Facebook. I saw that. And that's just adding to his list of very influential people around the state who are endorsing Nick Begich for Congress. And then he had another endorsement from somebody that I don't know, a guy named Mark Smith in Haines. And it was a video endorsement, a very, very thoughtful endorsement from a guy in Haines. So he is connecting with the people on the ground, and everywhere you turn, he is. And I know that a lot of us are going to go up to Fairbanks this week. I'll be going up to Fairbanks. In fact, I'm taking my car in today to get the oil changed so that I can do a road trip on Wednesday. By the way, it'll be, or I guess it'll be Thursday morning. I'm going to hit the road at dark 30 and head to the Republican State Convention, which is held every other year. And I wish you could be there, John. I wish you were able to get away. Let me know if you can. I'll pay for a ticket for you to get up there. And but it'll be about 320 Republican activists who will be there. Ronna McDaniels will be there. She's the head of the RNC. She'll be on our show later this week, by the way. That's pretty fun. Love to have Ronna McDaniel on our show. Now, some people say, oh, she's an establishment Republican. I don't know. Establishment Republican are people who've been out for a long time. I mean, maybe somebody called me an establishment Republican. I don't know.
Well, and remember, she was an early on Trump supporter that the
exactly.
Republican Party could not stand that she did that.
Oh gosh, no, they couldn't stand it. And I get that she's Mitt Romney's niece. And I used to like Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney seemed like a really great guy about 8 years ago. He came up here and he did a road show for I think it was when Dan Sullivan was running in 2014 and Sean Parnell. Mitt Romney came up and supported both of our candidates. He's a really good guy, but he's just kind of drifted a little liberal in his old age. So I'm not a Romney fan, but that's her uncle. And it's just like, you can't blame Nick Begich for his uncle. You can't blame Ronna McDaniels for her uncle. This is not fair. And then there'll be other speakers up there. So we have a speaker from Florida, Brian Mast. He's a representative from the 18th district in Florida, Purple Heart survivor of a catastrophic IED that he encountered in Afghanistan, I think. And he's a double amputee, but he serves in Congress, a really great patriot. And he used to sit next to Don Young in Congress, and so knew him quite well. He'll be introduced at the convention by Don's widow, Ann Young. And so I have a little story up on that from last night, just to kind of preview what's going to be happening at the convention. They'll be electing things like a new party chair, and it'll probably be Ann Brown, although there is a challenger. They'll do their other officers, vice chair, treasurer, secretary, and then they'll be looking at their platform. And so I'll be there. And actually, John, I'm going to be live streaming a lot on Facebook while I'm there. I'll live stream, and then I'll charge up my phone again, and I'll live stream some more. Nice. So we'll have a lot of content up on Facebook this week, and lots of stories as well. But on Thursday, I'll be driving, and then I'll be doing the podcast with Ronna McDaniel. Super, super busy day. So might not get up as much content on the website as we will have on Facebook, because a lot of it will be just live. And then, also when I'm on the road, by the way, we've got a great TikTok channel for everybody. Did you see the TikTok I put up last night of the Mr. Alaska #1 champion in male physique? His name is Jabal Leaf. He's from Soldotna, Alaska. He works out at the Iron Asylum gym, and he's 21 years old. He's never competed before in any bodybuilding competition, and he won first place. And I went to it last night, and it was so impressive that I actually took some video and I put it up on TikTok. Everybody go check out our TikTok channel.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's this week is going to be very exciting. I want to encourage folks to kind of be in tune with our Facebook channel, because Suzanne's going to be live streaming a bunch, and it's going to be a treat for Alaska if we can figure out a way to get our special guest on this week. The chair of the whole Republican Party. It's going to be pretty cool to be able to have her on possibly Thursday. So fingers crossed on that. And, I just want to encourage folks to get to know the process of ranked choice voting. I know that it's a cumbersome, almost gives you a headache or a seizure to even think about it.
Totally.
But you got to wrap your minds around this, especially the super voters here in Alaska who are voting every single time, no matter what. Because if you do it wrong, your ballot could be null and void, and we'd hate for that to happen, no matter who you're voting for. It's a freedom that we graciously embrace here in Alaska, to be able to vote for the candidates that we want, and we want to make sure we're doing it correctly. So study up on that. I know there's some resources out there to figure it out, but do some homework on your own. Suzanne's written some articles on it. We've published some by Tuckerman on it. But get educated, because it is a bit of a mess if you don't know what you're doing going into it.
Right. And it's not a matter of just saying this is who I prefer. I like candidate 1, 2, and 3. And actually in the first election, it's just pick one. And I'm afraid that some of our voters will be confused, and they'll say, I know I'm supposed to rank these, so I guess I'll fill in the bubble and then write a number next to it. Well, that would actually spoil your ballot. And what we're finding out across the country where they do ranked choice voting, the number of spoiled ballots is extremely high, because it's very confusing to voters. It's a ridiculous system designed by lawyers to actually rig the ballot system. But that's what our voters voted for, because they were actually kind of tricked into it by, we're going to get rid of dark money. And by the way, we're going to.
It was funded by dark money, the whole ranked choice.
so yeah, there'll be a presentation on that up in Fairbanks, and I'll be going to that. And I believe Brian Hove is putting that together. So that should be interesting. And if I can live stream it, I will. I'm not sure that how many of the things inside the room the party will let me live stream. That might be a little bit of a trick, a little negotiation there. But you'll have the podcast on Wednesday, right? And you'll probably have a guest.
Yep, I'm having Tuckerman on Wednesday. So everybody that wants to hear from Tuckerman, the former Republican Party chair and former chief of staff for Governor Dunleavy, and he was the head of the transition team as well for Governor Dunleavy. He's one of my favorite people. He's
so smart.
He's one of the smartest Alaska political people that I know, but he's also just a good person. And once people get to know him, I know there's a persona that people know of, all these kinds of folks in the media, and there's people that actually know these people. Yeah. And Tuckerman is just a salt of the earth kind of guy.
Yeah, and one of my favorites. That's for sure. I love him to pieces. Well, thank you for that. So everybody tune in on Wednesday for that. And thanks again to the Charlie Pierce for Governor for sponsoring this podcast. We really appreciate you, Charlie Pierce, for chipping in. And if you'd like to help us support the Must Read Alaska, conservative news in Alaska, really, the mainstream media is running circles around the news, and it's hard for us to keep up. We really appreciate the support. Everybody who has helped us, thank you. We really, really appreciate you. So until next week, John, we're signing off from somewhere in Alaska.